So my slides are visible on your screens. Yes, and am I? Yeah, and am I audible? Right. So it is the very first day of my presentation in the second semester season, and I have picked up the topic, and it is called "The Second Coming," a poem by W.B. Yeats. Important lines with explanation. So first of all, I would like to clarify that I have chosen this topic because we have in question bank this kind of short notes that this kind of important lines we are supposed to clear. That is why I selected this topic, and let us move further and see what is there. So it is the basic idea of the poem about the poem Second Coming. The Second Coming is a poem written by Irish poet W.B. Yeats. So we have to remember he was an Irish poet, and he was very much a good contributor in the Irish Revolution, which began along in 1919, and when the poem was first published in the Dial in November 1920, and afterwards included in his 1920 collection of verses Michael, Robertus, and the Dancer. Now let us. What is the basic thing about is this that the poem uses Christian imagery. So obviously he was belonging to a kind of religious background that he was a Protestant. So he used this Christian imagery in his poems, most of the poems. Regarding the apocalypse we know that Qayamat ka Din in Hindi or any Farsi perhaps. And second, coming to allegorically describe the atmosphere of post-war Europe. So, what atmosphere was after the very first World War end in the Europe, especially and in the England, especially. Now, the poem was written in 1919, which aftermath of the First World War and the beginning of the Irish War of Independence in January 1919. So, as I told earlier, that as the war end, this First World War end, and the Irish Revolution of Freedom began. And the poem is also connected to the 1918 to 1919 flu pandemic. So it is not so in our times the corona flu is there, but it was there in this time of this poet as well. In the weeks preceding its writing of the poem, his pregnant wife, Georgie Heidi Lees, caught the virus and was very close to death. So he was quite a near close save of this thing. The poem has influenced Chinua Achebe's novel Things Fall Apart, which was written in 1958. So Chinua Achebe's novel, the title which is taken, the title is here, the Things Fall Apart. It is taken from the poem. You can see in the third line, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. And let us move further. What's there? And here are only four noteworthy lines. The very first one is the falcon can hear the falconer, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. It is there, and we will explain. And the second one is the blood dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drawn. And the third is the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And the fourth is a quite longer. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs. So it is the very first line, and here I have put a video, but due to copyright problem, it is not shown here. Though I will explain it. What is that? The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. So the bird is not supposed to keep flying in circles. So we have that. First of all, let me tell you that this Indian concept about this samsar, we can refer to as samsar sagar. It means that it is a rotational, cyclical process that coming, going, taking birth and dying and taking birth again and again. But in between comes the moksha. So it is there, and here how Yeats describes is that the bird is not supposed to keep flying in circles because they have to come back and land on the falconer's blow. So here falcon means the humanity, and falconer is the god. Here most probably Jesus Christ is there, Jesus Christ. But W.B. Yeats said that the falcon cannot hear the falconer, and it has a deep symbolic meaning. He wanted to say that the human falcon does not obey their creator falconer. So we are generally expected to obey our gods or whatever they have told in the religious scriptures. They are moving away from the path shown by the creator. So when somebody is not following the religious dictums that even that are followed in the scriptures, then we call the person immoral or something else like that. You are not a good person. So we keep taunting that person by calling them evil and all the things. That is not good, negative, but it cannot be case at all. People only do hypocrisy, do politics of lies. People kill people together, commit heresy in the name of religion. Science has shaken their faith in God, and they compared God with science. Now, what happened? That we know that origin of species came in Victorian age by Charles Darwin. Yeah, then okay. Then people started questioning the existence of God, and then Friedrich Nietzsche came. John Locke came, all the philosophers were came, and they questioned the existence of God because nobody before that was doing that because there was a fear, not of the God, but most fear was of the community. Suppose if I question the existence of God, then these people is gonna kill me. That we have this witch burning and all the things, even in the Western world. And the most obvious answer is a deity figure. So here referred to as the government that were prevalent in the time that it was not able to seize the war. The war happened. Now the video game. Now let us see if okay. So it is not able. Okay. Now the second line is the blood dim tide is loosed and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drawn. So what is the blood dim tide? So it can be referred to as the war or the blood that is spilled during the war, and it can also be referred to as the blood of the deceased ones who were under the influence of this 1990 to 1919 flu. Now we cannot fail to remember Dr. Elizabeth Hautka. She is an associate professor of English at the University of Richmond. Mentions Yeats' poem "The Second Coming." So she wrote a book that is viral modernism, right? In 2019, in very recent year, she wrote a book, and in the sixth chapter that is named as Apocalyptic Pandemic. So I have all hyperlinked this. You can tap on that, and you will get to know what is there further. And so she writes that we will not read the whole paragraph, but some major keywords that in November 1980, at the height of the pandemic's deadly second wave, W.B. Yeats watched helplessly as his pregnant wife Georgie struggled to fight off the virus at the rented house in Dublin. So, as I told you earlier, this blood dim tide can be referred to as the deceased one's blood. As Yeats' wife Georgie was suffering from this disease, and Yeats was a kind of very much a nearer beholder of this happening. So, this reference might have dropped into in this poem by him. So it is the things now we get to know about this blood dim tide can be referred to as the war's blood or the deceased one's blood, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drawn. So now, what is the ceremony of innocence? Innocence here means the pacifists, those who do not want war, those who do not want to fight in the war. They want to peace everywhere in the world. So it is the ceremony of innocence is drawn. Now see in this blood dim tide, so there are so much blood. There is so much blood, and now these people are not going to listen to the pacifists, and they just want to show this glory of the blood. And this, okay, the best black hole conviction, and the third line is the best black hole conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So a tide red with blood is released and loosed over everything, suggesting massive violent deaths, as I told, as in war, not merely water. This tide drowns bodies as well as innocence itself. So it is. It was the breakdown that after World War, people's faith in humanity was shaken. That there is nothing like God. Nobody was coming to save us while our people were dying. So that is what brings the Nietzsche in the picture. That he calls we have to be Ubermans rather than relying on the scriptural message that this Mayuri was talking about. This yada yada hi dharma se glanir bhavati Barad abhyuthana dharma se tatmanam sujanyam. It means that you are relying on God. That God will come and do all the things. He will establish the dharma. If dharma does not mean a religion, it means the duty. The order of a duty that people are doing. So it gives that it rather it our we should not rely on this thing, and we should not stop amending the things in our society. It is quite contrary. The very idea is quite contrary to the Friedrich Nietzsche's Ubermensch, the Superman. Ubermensch, he writes in this thus Precht Zarathustra, a book in 1883. So we have to see that. So the not merely water, this tide drowns bodies as well as innocence itself. It washes away purity. In its way, wise, good people are reduced to self-doubt and uncertainty, while the worst of people becomes passionate and presumably powerful. So here, who are these worst and worst people and passionate? These are nothing but these dictators. So we know that. Suppose let me take an example of Russian 1917 revolution. That Lenin came and he established a new government. He dethroned this. Tsar Nicholas II, and it was the end of monarchy in Russia. So he was expecting to see here. It is the book, another book, From Dictatorship to Democracy. It is by Jean Sartre. He writes, if the fall of one regime does not bring in a utopia, rather it opens the way for hard work and long efforts to build more just social, economic and political relationship, and the eradication of the other forms of injustice and oppression. So it means that suppose any, let us take Russia in example. The Russian monarchy was failing out. Now it does not mean that we have to establish another one, but we have to create a just social, economic, and political relationship. So instead, it happened. It went wrong, I think, and then dictators came. So we also remember Absalom and Equitable John Dryden. He says that these kind of speeches are made by these propagandist dictators, that he says some truth was there, but dazed and brewed with lies to please the fools and the puzzle all the wise. So it was, we can take the reference of that, and let us move ahead. So this the best like all conviction means the pacifist, nobody was listening to them because they all were inclined to go, and the worst are full of passion. It means they were, the dictator was were in the vague to fight the things. It is the video, but now due to this copyright claim problem, it's not happening. And the fourth line is somewhere in the sands of the desert, a safe with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs. So how we can imagine that? So you can see the image, and another one is the Sphinx, the ancient Greek Sphinx, which is supposed to guard the palace or the pyramid. But Yeats wrote in the introduction to his play, I began to imagine around 1904 as always at my left side, just out of the range of sight, a brazen winged beast which I associate with laughing, ecstatic destruction, nothing that the beast was afterwards described in my poem, The Second Coming. So how this reference is come, how this reference comes in this poem. So he was imagining a beast while writing the poem. And later on, we can compare this Sphinx, ancient Greek Sphinx, which was supposed to guard the pyramid. But if we compare, that sir was telling that it is not quite, there is no similarity between these two, because here you will find a dystopic vision. Here it is protecting thing. So there is no similarity in the facial expression as well. So it is not worth comparing to. And it is critical overview. In his contemporary on the collected poems, W.B. Yeats, a Norman Jeffrey, so he's a critic. Norman Jeffrey suggests that the falcon may represent civilization becoming out of touch with Christ, whose birth was the revelation which marked the beginning of the 2000 years of Christianity. So it was the fall of man from the religion. It was there. And two other critics, Donald Davy and Harold Bloom. So Harold Bloom, we all are familiar with, I think, have suggested that tying the poem to Christian apocalypse is not as an automatic a necessity as the poem itself suggests. Davy remarks that early drafts that the Christian apocalypse features not a second but a first coming. In Yeats, Bloom refers to early drafts of the poem. So by and large, we can say this vision of this lion, the shape which has the face of lion and the face of human and the body of lion. So it is the face of the science, or it is the representation of science which will shake the things outside, and it will create a dystopic vision that we have robot films in our dystopia, that robots will take control of the humans and they will be the master of humans. So it can be seen in that way also. Now it's the conclusion. In an age of shocking reversal, Yeats' theory of historical cycles, day and night and day forever, as he once put it right, rings true. The only consolation the poem offers is the knowledge that for one reason or another, every generation has felt the same apocalyptic shudder. So every generation, why? It was 100 years. It was in 1919, 100 years ago, they were having war and this pandemic flu. But now we are considering this 2020 as we had also corona, right? Corona in the whole world. So we thought it is the annus mirabilis, but it turned out to be annus horribilis instead. So apocalyptic shudder that Yeats did 100 years ago. That's why it is a poem for 1990 and 1939 and 1968 and 1970 and further 2001 as well. And today and tomorrow things fall apart over and over again. Yet the beast never quite reaches Bethlehem. So he never reaches this beast. In his definitive edition of Yeats' poem, Richard J. Feynman, this very prominent critic, Richard J. Feynman, quotes Yeats' own notes. So what Yeats has written, so it is quoted by this Richard J. Feynman. So these are the words by Yeats. The end of an age which always receives the revelation of a character of the next age is represented by the coming of one gyre to its place of greatest expansion and of the other to its place of greatest contraction. The revelation that approaches will take its character from the contrary movement of the interior gyre. So gyre, it will keep spinning. It will serve as drawing this drawing on the board, that this will keep on spinning, and in every spin there will be a new character or watershed movement which can change the course of the whole age. So here is the bibliography, and that was all about my presentation.
So,
So,
Nirav, my question is, how would you describe the ceremony of innocence? How would you describe the ceremony of innocence?
so Nilay, your question is that how would I describe the ceremony? Basically, what is the ceremony of innocence, if I'm not wrong? So, ceremony of innocence is the meetings, or rather, as far as in my opinion, I can say ceremony of innocence. It is that we have more pacifists rather than warmonger people. That suppose there are 10 people sitting in an assembly, or rather NATO assembly, that out of 10 there are 5 people who are in favor of war, and out of 5 who are against of war. So it is not the ceremony of innocence. It is the dichotomy that 5 are for this and 5 are for that. But ceremony of innocence, as far as my understanding goes, there can be 9 people who are against war. They are pacifist, and only one who can be supporting, like a dictator kind of people. They want war. So it is the ceremony of innocence, perhaps, according to me. So if there is anything you want to add, then you can. Anybody here sitting? Okay.
Other question.
Yeah, yeah, do ask me. Hold on, hold on.
What is the connection between democracy and the second coming? What is the connection between democracy and the second coming? Like you described the totalitarian, tyrannical.
Yes, so your question is that what is the connection between democracy? So first we have to know about this. Democracy is a concept. Yeah, it is an abstract concept. And the second coming is a poem, written poem. So here the democracy, it is democracy cannot be seen in the whole poem. Rather, there is no presence of that, and these dictator kind of things, people are presented in the poem. So there is, I think, there is no connection between democracy. Perhaps there is a lack of democracy in the poem. Why? Because poet wants democracy, and there is no democracy in their age because dictators were ruling in the name of democracy, in the name of government. Or if you want to add anything, okay.
My question is, what kind of mythological creature is featured in the poem Second Coming?
So your question is obvious in that. Okay. So mythological creature, we can say that sphinx or a lion, shape, face of a man and body of a lion. As Mayuri also described, the Nrsimha avatar is there. So it is the mythological creature. It was mythology of Greek. So it is called sphinx in Greek. So they were supposed to guard the pyramid where the kings or queens are sepultured or buried. So it is the mythological creature, and indignant birds is another reference coming that indignant birds. So who they are, we have to know about that. It is the thing. Satisfied or something else? Or is there anybody who want to ask me anything about the poem? Okay. Shall I stop, sir? Thank you. Thank you.